Gentlemen, today we're going to look at the XM16E1. This was a transitional rifle that bridged the gap between the original M16 and the M16A1. Basically, reports started coming in based on the performance of the M16. The Air Force liked it as it was. The Army wanted some improvements, and the Marines wanted the M14. So there had to be a compromise made. And so they started looking at some of the improvements that they wanted to do, and some of those were put into the XM16E1 and then sent back out to the field for testing. So what you see are components of both the M16 and the M16A1. So for example, we got the forward assist that you see in the M16A1, but we didn't get the trapdoor butt plate yet. We were still using the old M16 stocks. Even those were a little bit transitional in the A1. Some of these still had the hard chrome bolt carrier groups. Some just had hard chrome bolts, but these were being phased out. This wasn't really dependent on what the government was requiring. It was rather some improvements that Colt had made, which I think weren't as much improvements, but they were cost-cutting measures where they said, hey, we can phosphate these or parkerize these and they'll work just as good. And they slowly transitioned into that. So a lot of times, if you'll see a forward assist and a hard chrome bolt carrier group, it's probably an XM16E1 and not an M16A1. That's not always true. Parts did get swapped out in the field, but oftentimes. They also added this push button front takedown pin. On the M16 you had a rear takedown pin, and this thing was designed to be broken down shotgun style like this and cleaned and never taken apart. Well, because cleanliness of this rifle became such a big focus, as they found that they were having problems with guns being too dirty from some of the poor powder that was being ran through them, they decided they would put a push button front on it also, so that guys in the field could completely separate the two halves and clean them that way. They were wanting to do that anyhow. Before, this was just a screw, a double-headed screw that wasn't really designed to be taken apart, and by adding this push button front, well, they were both able to take apart, come apart for cleaning. However, you didn't have any protection around the magazine release. That's something that came later on with the M16A1. As these improvements, feedback was coming back, they decided, hey, if we lay this on a bunker log or across the top of a M113 or whatever, this button can be bumped really easily and we lose our magazine. So they put the full fence around it to protect it from having the magazine released. The left side of everything, of the whole rifle, pretty much so remained unchanged. No differences between really the M16, the E1, and the A1. And well, let's face it, really the A2 also, right? One of the big changes that you did see were with the barrel. So the original barrels, the very, very early barrels were 1 in 14 twist. They found that to be too unstable in cold temperatures, so they changed that out to a 1 in 12 twist. So the issued M16, E1, and A1 all had 1 in 12 twist, but they also were bare bores. They weren't chrome lined at all, and that was a problem, because if any of you have been out in the field very long with a bare bore rifle, then you'll find that just leaning against the tree overnight sometimes, and the dew sets in, and the humidity and the moisture in the air will cause a little bit of microscopic rust inside the chamber, which causes your brass to stick and eventually causes malfunctions. So to fix that, with the XM16E1, they hard chromed that chamber. By the time the A1 came out, they were hard chroming the chamber and the bore, and that's what we still have today. It's just better durability, and it ensures that the weapon functions without any corrosion issues while it's out in the field. Hard chroming is very resistant to rust and corrosion. Flash hider was changed also. This is a 3-prong type flash hider, which is probably the best flash hider design ever made. AAC even today still uses these on some of their more modern suppressor mounts. But the problem with this was the kind of folklore tale is that guys were using these to open baling wire on C-rat crates and causing them to bend or bend in the barrel or whatever. I'm not saying that never happened. I just think that's a training issue, and if it did happen, it could have been corrected really easily from directives coming down from higher ups. I think that the real problem was, and I found this myself with both these and the AAC flash hiders, is when you're moving through the woods, especially the jungle or even just the heavily wooded area, these get hung up all the time. You're typically moving muzzle forward, and you end up getting vines and branches and grass hung up in here. Before you know it, it's trying to pull your rifle out of your hand. It's just a big pain. By simply closing these off and going to what became the A1 flash hider, you don't have that problem anymore. That problem is completely addressed, and I think that that's the real big improvement that you got by getting away from this 3-prong flash hider and going to what we know as a birdcage flash hider. Also, the T-handle was changed, the charging handle. Originally these were a little more low profile, a little sleek, a little more cooler looking, but obviously you can see that if your hands are wet, which they were all the time in Vietnam anyway, from sweat, then it became harder to grip and charge the weapon. So we went to a 90-degree T-handle, and this is the same T-handle that we see from the XM16E1 up until today. It's not really changed at all. Some other minor changes, like I mentioned, the stock. There's no trap door in this stock. It's just a rubber butt plate. As the cleaning regiment became implemented more strongly and firmly, they put a trapdoor butt plate so you could store a cleaning kit inside the stock. This swivel design was also simplified on the rear. Yeah, guys, I honestly think I've covered everything. Maybe I forgot something. There are some other very minor details for guys that are like hardcore clone builders, but that's basically it. All in all, this is a fantastic rifle. We'll say this, the buffers changed also. You had a more complicated buffer with the XM16E1, and by the time the A1 came out, we were using the same type buffer that you guys are familiar with now in, say, the A2 or A4 rifle, any full-size receiver extension rifle. They just simplified that design a little bit. Which was there. The whole reason that's there is to address bolt bounce. This specific build is a mixture of reproduction parts and original parts. So let's talk about those. Brownells was a big help in helping me put this rifle together. I got many of the parts from them. So let's talk about those first. Upper receiver, lower receiver, both came from Brownells. These are made by Nodak Spud. You can see these are marked NDS up here, but they're both made by Nodak Spud. They're in the XM Gray. I bought both of these as blims, and I got a very, very good deal on them. Couldn't pass them up. So Brownells has really stepped up their game in offering these retro parts, and this is some of their retro line that's available. So that's where the upper and lower came from. Lower parts kit is a DPMS. The thing about DPMS for you clone builders is that when you buy these DPMS lower parts kits, you can apply naval jelly to the finish and it will turn them a very light parkerized gray. So you can see how that looks, like the originals would have been. So it's kind of a retro builder's cheater's way of getting that light parkerized gray that were on the original parts. That's DPMS lower parts kit with naval jelly applied. I got the receiver extension, buffer spring, all came from Brownells. I used Brownells Alumahide 2 dark parkerizing gray on a few of these parts. My no-tick selector on one side, this is just naval jelly. On this side, I had to file off the tick, and then I just sprayed that with some Brownells Alumahide 2 dark parkerizing gray. Same thing on my receiver extension, this little ring. These come black these days, but they should have been a lighter gray. So I use that Brownells dark parkerizing gray on that part as well. The stock and handguard are originals. They were in pretty rough shape. I got those from Numrich as surplus parts, and I just cleaned them up, polished them up, cleaned them up, and actually they look pretty nice now. Pretty happy with that. The rear swivel was completely rusted out. I had to replace that. I found those from Apex. I already had an unissued brand new grip, so we just put that on there. I believe this Forward Assist is maybe a DPMS model. I'm not sure. It's not an original though. Other gray parts: the charging handle, the trigger guard, and the magazine release. I bought these from another company. I think it was AR-15 Sports or something like that. I'm not sure, but just as retro parts that had been refinished, reanodized in the dark gray so that that would match up. Bolt carrier group, I just found someone online that had a hard chrome bolt carrier group and purchased it. At the time, the Brownell's hard chrome bolt carrier groups weren't here. They're available now, so you can just source those from Brownell's and get a good looking bolt carrier group. The barrel and the barrel ring are original. These came from a good friend of mine, Mike Steves. He hooked me up. These are original off of probably an M16A1. They are, it's a fully chrome line bore, so it's probably an M16A1. Original barrel, 1 in 12 twist, 20 inches long. Flash hider, I don't remember where this one came from. It's a reproduction. And I take these off and on because I convert these from live rounds to blanks and back and forth from time to time. This magazine is actually, I have a bunch of originals, but this one is actually an OK magazine from OK Industries. And it's a fantastic original style magazine. See, it's marked OK there. It's manufactured in February of 17. But these are great magazines. You can get them for about 11 bucks a piece. So if you're looking for an original style magazine constructed like the originals that's inexpensive, OK Industries is the way to go. Let's look at the accessories. This is a sling, just an original style sling. This one's cotton, like a canvas material. Later on, you start seeing some of the nylon, they call them seatbelt slings. They're kind of a dark brown color, and they were designed to be a little more weather resistant, but that was later on in the war. Most of the rifles ended up with a sling like this. And your bayonet, this is just a standard bayonet, nothing special about this. This is an M7, a US M7 bayonet, and those came in US M8A1 carriers. All right, fellas, I think I've talked enough about this XM16E1. If it's something that you're into, these retro rifles, I absolutely love them. I think this is one of the finest rifles that was ever made ever. And with the right maintenance, these guns, they just run and run and run, super accurate, really good velocity with this long 20-inch barrel, and they are super lightweight. So if this is something that you're into, let me encourage you, do a build. Buy one from Brownell's. They offer complete rifles, and you can also find there's some other Colt's got one that's out now. I think maybe theirs is an M16A1, but that would be a fine purchase. I think they're overpriced, but definitely a collectible piece. But if you're on a budget, build your own, and like I did, or yeah, check out Brownell's. They have some really good deals going on there, retro rifles, and they seem to be getting better every few months. They're making small improvements to those to get them closer to the original style rifle, and they're looking really, really good. One of those you can go out and blast away with and not have to worry about the value of it being decreased. Thanks for viewing, guys. As always, I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next video.